Shravasti, I think we can start, yeah.
Okay, let's start. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the first edition of Bengaluru Citizen Clinic. Citizen Clinic is a format in which we take up specific issues that citizens are facing and try to look at solutions towards those problems. Today's Citizen Clinic is flood-proofing homes and neighborhoods. As we all know that Bengaluru has faced its worst floods this year, and with climate change, rainfall will get more intense, and with that, citizens would have to grapple with challenges of dealing with rain-related problems affecting their homes, neighborhoods, apartment complexes, and offices. In today's webinar, we will be taking up some of the questions our citizens have sent us. And during the course of the webinar, an illustrious panel of experts will be, providing solutions and clearing doubts. Allow me to please introduce our panelists for the evening. Dr. Anjali Karol Mohan. She is an urban and regional planner with a PhD in e-governance. Of course, S. Vishwanath, or the Zen Rainman, is a well-known Bengaluru-based water expert and educator. And Captain Santosh Kumar, a lake activist and an environmental worker working towards protecting and promoting Raja Kalways in water bodies. Today's session will be moderated by Aarti Mane. Welcome, Aarti. And before we begin, I would just like to give a brief introduction about Citizen Matters and what we do. Citizen Matters is a civic media platform in which there is knowledge sharing, and we publish in-depth reports on critical urban issues that affect everyday quality of our lives, which includes water, commute, the environment, air quality, governance, public policy, local economy, and much more. We bring together civic media, data, and diverse voices to enable our citizens to live in more equitable, sustainable, and livable cities. We also provide in-depth information, insights, and analysis to facilitate understanding among citizens about these critical urban issues and to help them create tools of their own so that they too can become change makers. With that, I would like to invite Aarti to please take over the session. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shravasti. Yes, we have seen a lot of water in Bangalore these last few years. All of us would recall that some time ago, there were these reports that estimated that Bangalore would go dry in the next 10 years or so. And looking at the water all around us, it seems obvious that if we are prudent enough in handling all the water we are getting from the skies, the water shortage situation can surely be averted. And along with this, we can protect our homes and our neighborhoods from excessive water. Now, what would we need to do to make this happen? Sincere thanks to our experts and all the citizens watching us on Zoom and the live YouTube feed today. And thanks especially to the citizens who sent in their questions for the experts to answer. After we address the questions that have been raised, we'll have a short Q&A session. Please put in your questions in the chat or in the YouTube chat so that we can pick the questions from there. Now, on the broad issues of seeping and flooding, we received many questions that we broadly classified into 4 categories. Water seepages due to a lot of water within the properties and outside. Water flowing into the properties from outside due to external factors. The role of lakes and stormwater drains in flood control. And governance and design issues. Of course, many of the questions are connected and our experts will do their best to answer them. We'll start with a few localized home-based questions. Zen Rainman, these questions all relate to basement water seepages. And though the solutions will not necessarily be the same, we'll just ask them in one shot because the same kind of answers may address them in one go. So there are 4 questions here. The gentleman says, my store is in the basement on Commercial Street and gets flooded as the water table rises during the rains. What can I do to stop this? The next question is about another office in the basement, which is next to an empty plot. And whenever it rains, there is water coming into the basement from the bottom and the sides. What can I do? Our home has a big compound with a lot of trees and mud and almost no concreted ground. We have wells that are filled with water, but our basement has been having water enter through the sides, and we have to keep using a pump to get it out regularly. Is there a solution to salvage the basement? And there is one gentleman who has sort of given up, and he says, my basement has about 4 feet of water right now. I don't want to use the basement anymore. It fills up in the rainy season and drains later on. And the question I have is, does it affect my structure? And is there something I need to do about it? So Zen Rain Man, those are the 4 questions. If you need me to remind you about anything, please inform me, but please go ahead.
Thanks, Aarti. Let me caveat the solutions that I'm giving. All of these are not specific to the problem there is, and there has to be a site-based investigation before the exact answer can be found. But generically, I will try and address what is happening now. As you rightly pointed out, Aarti, we were supposed to be running out of groundwater. According to the Niti Aayog report, we now have basements full of water. Right? So why is that phenomenon happening? And there's a new phenomenon that is now hitting our cities. Chennai is one example, Hyderabad is another, and Bangalore is the third, where we are confronted with something called groundwater flooding. Typically, we had surface water flooding. Now there's groundwater flooding or aquifer-based flooding. The reason for the Commercial Street or the gentleman's basement getting water from the sides, which is seeping in, is because the groundwater table has come up in their areas. The way to address this problem, one step at a time, is to start to use the aquifer or the well, the open well, water in summertime, so that the aquifer is depleted and is ready to receive a certain volume of rainwater and store it below 2 meters. Ideally, we would like our groundwater level to be 2 meters below ground level, right? So that it's below the foundation and therefore the foundation itself is not affected. So lessons that we have to learn for Bangalore is at an individual scale, try digging a well, try using the water. And if you're not able to use the water, try pumping it out to lower the groundwater table. Yeah, that's one thing. Aarti, your house itself has 2 wells. The wells have water. You're not using the water. Now, like the gentleman, other gentlemen, we should now start to use the aquifers as quickly as possible in lieu of Kaveri waters and make sure that the aquifer is emptied to at least 20 to 30 feet, right? Then it can receive these waters and the rainwaters and probably not flood our homes. But this is only possible for a certain volume of rain. If we are confronted by large-scale flooding, these solutions will not work. And so large-scale flooding will have to be dealt with, but as Captain Santosh Kumar will tell us, through adequate drainage systems, Raj Kaluves being kept clean and stormwater drainage going on. For now, try pumping the water out, try preventing surface water flows from coming into your basement, and remove the basement water as much as possible. In the case of the gentleman who has 4 feet of water, will his foundation be affected? Though the safe-bearing capacity of the soil or the foundation is reduced by 50% if the groundwater table comes up, normally the design features will make sure that the foundation actually is not affected. We'll have to consult a structural engineer. The real problem is with differential settlement. If you have clay on one side and sand on another side, unlikely to happen in the Bangalore context, so the gentleman need not worry about the foundation being affected in the case, but he will have to try and remove the water as much as possible and as soon as possible. I'll stop there and then we'll take the answers more directly later.
Yeah, thanks so much, Zen Rainman. The next question is for Anjali. This is related to street design, the lady says that our house built in the 1950s is on Greenwich Street in Bangalore. That's near the erstwhile Akke Timmanahalli tank. And ever since the smart city work elevated the road, it has messed up the drains and we get flooded with every heavy and even not so heavy rains. Water enters our houses from the overflowing drains and flooded streets. We need some solutions that we can effect. They did get in touch with the smart city people, and I think they found that some of the drains had a lot of rubble in it, but that has not solved the problem. Anjali, go ahead. Anjali, you're on mute, Anjali.
Sorry. Okay, thanks for the question. And yeah, this is again, it has to be, first of all, let me just say that this is happening across the city, especially where we have been seeing all these white-topped roads. There is, there is a lot of problem where the road level is going above the house level, and many houses, especially in the older parts of the cities, which were never flooded, are getting flooded. This is not just Bangalore specific, it is happening in many cities. To begin with, of course, as I don't know how many of us know, but when the road laying is happening, the contractors are actually supposed to strip the roads completely, the previous, whatever has been laid out, and then lay, but that does not happen. In most parts of the old city, the road is there, a higher level of footpath, and then the house is supposed to be there, but that has got completely distorted now. I don't think, as far as I know, I don't think there is a specific local solution to what can be done in this case, except that, yeah, you need to keep the stormwater drains, perhaps increase the perviousness within the plot itself, if that's a possibility, because as the water comes in, if there is some open space and if you can increase the pervious surfaces, that's a possibility that can be, explored. Again, I'm putting it out there. Honestly speaking, there are so many people who come out with this issue, and this is especially so with, I mean, earlier it would be only be with the more marginalized settlements, but now we are finding it all across the city. And I don't know, I do not have an answer to this question, because except to have a very reactive solution to this, to say that increase some perviousness, maybe the other people on the panel may be able to explain or find a solution to this. But I think when the roads are getting laid, we just have to insist that the levels do not come above the houses. What I have seen in some of the urban poor settlements where I have been doing a lot of work, and there is a similar problem, they actually construct a 3 to 4 inch kind of a barrier, which just outside the house, which doesn't allow the water to get in immediately. And those are some of the coping mechanisms that people resort to. But other than that, honestly speaking, I think it is a dialogue that we have to have with the government. It's a mobilization that has to be done to say that we have to make sure that when the contracts are laid out, there are always these clauses in the contracts where they're supposed to strip the road and then put the new road, but it's just that it never gets followed. So to some extent, we have to do a follow-up on that. Beyond that, I don't think there is a solution to this, unless maybe Vishwanath or Captain Santosh have something to add to it.
Can I just add in quickly one word, Arti?
Yeah, please.
So Anjali, as Anjali rightly pointed out, this is a structural problem and it's an issue which the roads have to fix. Typically, all road designs have to come jointly with the stormwater drain adjacent to the road, right? The road runoff has to be picked up in the stormwater drain and then carried away from that locality. Unfortunately, these stormwater drains are ill-designed. Sometimes they do not receive water from the road runoff, and they're not designed appropriately enough to take the water out. What the local residents should do is to petition the smart city or whoever is in charge of the road construction. It could be the BBMP, to make sure, A, that the stormwater drain is designed, 2, that the depth of the stormwater drain is sufficient enough to take the water from the plot into the stormwater drain. Not just the road runoff, but the plot runoff also should come into the stormwater drain. So the drain should be deep enough below the plot level to carry off this runoff and take it away from there. These issues, when agglomerated, consolidated, and put forward to the authorities, will hopefully result in better design of stormwater drains adjacent to roads, which is one of the most badly overlooked features of road design in our city.
Also, pervious stormwater drains. That's another very, very big issue.
Yeah. All right. Thanks. Captain Santosh, would you like to add anything to this?
Ma'am, before we get into the very concept of drains and lakes, first we need to understand this whole ecosystem of lakes as well as the drains. Like rightly pointed out by the Zen Rain Man, it clearly highlighted one thing. It was the surface level flooding has moved into the ground water level flooding now. That's what we all need to understand. Today, what is happening at the superficial level, we are talking about lakes, we are talking about the drains, we are talking about the Rajakaluves, but no one is getting it to understand the very basics of all these things. See, in the past, say take 100 years back, everything got documented, every drain out got documented, every lake got documented, including the contour level. If you see the British maps, they have documented the lakes up to the contour level to show what will be the depth of the lake, what will be the width of the drain, how the drain has to pass. When I take you through the whole this thing, I'll show you on the Google Earth why these lakes are important, why these drains are important, why this problem of this flooding is happening, what is the reason for this seepage. Like I seen the work of this Zen Rain Man. He has done a wonderful job. He has done a wonderful job. He has from the long time is trying to educate people to understand the importance of all these things. Today, what is happening when we are designing, implementing, doing the infrastructure works, we are forgetting the basics. Till that time, you don't concentrate on the basics, you don't pay attention. The first and the basic, the foremost thing is the maintaining the elevation. One lake has to flow into another lake, it flows on elevation, not on pumping. When something has to flow from one elevation to another lake, say a lake is one lake is at 890 meters. If it has to flow into the another lake receiving point needs to be 887 or less. Otherwise, water will not flow. If you try to push that water, if you created a constraint, if you created some sort of filling in end route, the whole this thing will get flooded. That's what the basic thing we need to follow. Like Anjali madam was mentioning, that she will not be able to give the solution for what we are asking for, because when we are designing the roads in the past, we have done the mess up. We have messed up the whole thing. Now, when I take you through the whole this thing, because I worked with a lot of Rajakaluves, I see this problem whenever we see flooding. People give this superficial solution, clearing one drain, clearing something and doing something, giving a quick fixes. Quick fixes will not work. Today, if you see in the whatever rainfall, it is the highest in the last 50 years. Next year, we never know. We will be having the much more than what we have received this year. Now, the Chennai was a warning. Some few years back, Chennai was a warning. After that, Hyderabad was a warning. Now, Bangalore is a reality. Tomorrow, it may be Mysore. Tomorrow, somewhere other, we will see this sort of problem. The very solution for all these problems, I'll take you to the Google Earth after the one or two questions. Then I'll explain the complete basics, what we need to follow, how we need to work on this.
Yeah. All right, Captain. This question is for you. It's somebody who is living near a lake, and they say that the layout is constantly getting flooded because the lake is overflowing. Now, I've interacted with a few others in the recent past, and they were complaining about the lake, saying the lake is there and the lake keeps overflowing. So I told them that imagine if the lake wasn't there. At least the lake is taking that much of water and it's overflowing. Now, what do people who are living near lakes look for? Is there anything that they can do to avert flooding of their areas from overflowing lakes? And the other question related to this is sewage entering the lake. What do they do if they find sewage entering the lake? Because when the lakes overflow, it's that water which is entering their layouts and homes. Go ahead.
Let me answer you the first question. The first question, what they are putting across is this lake necessary?
Yes.
Laughing at that this thing. Yes, lot of people ask me this question. Practically, some people have eaten up those lakes. In Bangalore, we had 900 plus up to 1,000 lakes in the past. Today, we are left with 830 lakes on document. And where all the lakes got missing, there all you're seeing the flooding. Lake is like a buffer point. Lake is like a buffer, this thing. See, whenever there is an excess water, it has to go and get stored somewhere. From there, once it gets filled, after that the waste where level it reaches, it has to flow into the some other lake. This is how the whole ecosystem of these lakes and the drains has been created with. Lakes will be having a catchment area wherever the rainfall falls. That area is called as rainfall surface runoff has to flow into the lake. That is the catchment area. From the catchment area, water reaches into the lake. That whole that area will be safe till the time that lake is in a position, lake is in a good condition, lake has been timely desilted, and the drains has been maintained in condition. If you miss up anything, if you block the drain, if you block the catchment area drains into the lake, if you are not desilted the lake in a proper condition, if you raise the level of the waste wear, then obviously you will be paying a price for it. Because the moment if you increase the 1 feet of height of a waste wear, the water storage capacity will go up. The area which is there in the catchment area will be started getting flooded. This is what is happening. If someone tries to protect his property or protects his interest, normally they try to increase the level of the waste wear. Whenever you touch a waste wear, whenever you touch a lake bund, whenever you do anything, any modification with the lake, you need to be very careful. You need to go to the basics of thing we call it lake scientifics. You have to go to the basics. Sluice get somewhere and increase the waste wear of the lake somewhere. You try to divert the Rajakalve into some other place. It will not take it. After this question, I'll take you through and I'll show you on ground how it is going to affect us, how the Rainbow Drive got affected, how the other places of Bengaluru got affected. Once you see that, then you'll understand. Actually, I told you in the beginning, elevation. Higher elevation to lower elevation. Water will never go from the lower elevation to the higher elevation. We are not doing the pumping. The second question, what they are asked for, is the sewage entry. Sewage entry is a common problem across Bengaluru. You may ask, what is the reason for that? This is something what we have done, irresponsible development across our urban areas. You go to any Gram Panchayat, all the Gram Panchayat, all the villages, straight away discharging their sewage into the stormwater drain. This is what we are telling these people. You need to understand the difference between a Rajakalve, difference between a swear drain. They are two different. In some places, what has happened, now it has become a synonymous saying that sewage drain will be carrying the Rajakalve load, Rajakalve drain will be carrying the sewage this thing. This is what we have created the disaster in the whole our urban infrastructure, what we have designed. Whatever the rainwater has to reach into the lake. Whatever the sewer has to go and get treated and then reach into the lake. That's what the whole concept is. Today we messed up the whole thing. Because of that mess up, you will not be able to find any solution until unless you don't segregate. You don't segregate sewage out from your stormwater drain water, what you are discharging. If you don't segregate, then you are forced to receive the contaminated water flow which is coming into a lake. Once it enters into your lake, all that lake will get contaminated. It's fine. If you're seeing the sewage, it's fine. When it comes to the industrial effluents, comes and joins into it, then you're making your lake itself is in a poison pot. That's what is happening over here.
Yeah. Thanks, Captain Santosh. So basically, it's not a solution. There is no immediate solution for this. It involves government authorities.
Immediate solution is available. Let me Zen Renman put across his views.
So I'll just add to Captain Santosh. It's 1 minute only, Aarti. The thing is that residents should understand what the full tank level of a lake means, right? So the full tank level is the level of the waste wear, and then a contour line which indicates what the full tank water spread is all about, right? If they have the map, and if fortunately or unfortunately we don't have these kind of maps, if we had these maps available in public domain, then we would understand what area of our layout would get flooded when the lake is full, right? These maps are very crucial and very important, and Captain Santosh Kumar is trying to work his best to get these things in the public domain. First, get those maps, get the full tank level, get the water spread level with the full tank, right? And then understand what's happening. Second thing they do, they cannot reduce the waste wear level. Though the government itself has done it in the case, for example, in Rachinhalli Lake, they've brought down the waste wear level so as to protect a couple of educational institutions. This may be the last answer. This is not ideal for a lake, and it should not be done as a first solution. It should be the last solution if large areas are getting flooded. Third thing they can do is to try and increase the bund level next to their layout, within their layout, not within the lake, to keep sure that the full tank level water does not come in. The fourth thing that they should do is to try and put open wells and use the aquifer water, the groundwater, for their layouts requirement, at least for non-potable use, so that they reduce the aquifer level and prevent flooding to the extent. The last point about sewage, it depends on where they are located. If they are located in an area where the BWSSB sewerage network is there, then they should make sure that the BWSSB puts in place the sewerage network to take the waste water to the sewage treatment plant. If they're located outside the BWSSB area, then unfortunately, as Captain Santosh explained, we'll have to make sure that there's a diversion of the Rajkalve for summer flows, just about 6 inches or 9 inches of water, so that sewage is diverted. It is not a permanent solution. It's a temporary solution, and that only stormwater enters the lake. This is what is being tried out. But these are all suboptimal solutions, and which should be taken with care. It depends on the layout.
Yeah, all right. Thank you, Vishwanath. Anjali, the next questions I have are about the design of streets and gardens. Somebody has mentioned that in old Bangalore, there are many large campuses such as schools, religious places, etc. They've concreted most of their campuses. And this means the water cannot get into the ground, but it runs off into the streets. And the drains aren't designed to take that kind of volume of water. So we regularly have flooded roads. Is there not some rule that restricts concretization of grounds in large campuses so that water can percolate? This is one question. And the other question, how can the design of public areas, streets, gardens, station areas, etc., be optimized to ensure that flooding is mitigated? Are there particular features that can be capitalized on for flood mitigation? And what are the absolutely essential design principles that need to be adopted, and how can we ensure that they are? What is the governance mechanism to ensure that this happens? Anjali, you can take it, and then the others can please contribute.
Okay. So to the first question that you asked about the larger campuses, such as schools and all, which have concretized. So we did an exercise where we actually mapped all the spaces in the larger plots and the larger institutional and public spaces in and around private, but also institutional campuses in and around Lalbagh, all the way into South Bangalore, going up till Basungudi. And what we found was that there were a lot of these larger campuses which have a lot of pervious surfaces. So one solution which we are proposing to the government is to say at the neighborhood level, actually map these spaces and say that these spaces in each of these individual plots, which are large plots, you actually bring out a rule, and there is a rule. It's only a matter of enforcement to say only a certain percentage of that area will be concretized, right? And also at the policy level, say that many of these spaces actually become a part of what there is a lot of traction right now, is to say that they become a part of the blue-green infrastructure. They belong to the individual campus and the property owner, but because they are part of a larger city network, show them as a network of spaces which will actually be carrying your excess water, simply by keeping the surfaces pervious. Now, one is at a larger level to start mapping them, and I think I really completely endorse that a lot of these maps, the visualization of these spaces, where they are sitting in the larger city fabric, what are the contours around them, the elevations and the slopes around them, these actually need to be made available in the public domain. How do you do it in the public domain? Actually break it down to the ward level and let the councillor host this map in his office, and everybody sees where these where these area campuses or whatever else is to be seen can be visualized through that map. If you cannot do it at the ward level, you can do it at the zonal level or the planning district level, but I think the ward is a lot more easier. So that's the first thing. Second, especially in the case of this Richmond town where they've asked these questions, these are just very large campuses, and I think that's that's a hook that one can lever, because it's only a question of enforcing and even increasing the awareness. So I would say, one, start increasing it. We can actually pick up very targeted programs where you start increasing the awareness to begin with for the BBMP and then for the larger campuses to say that there is a perviousness in the surfaces that is required. As a last resort, there are technologies. For example, you also have paver blocks, which allow a certain amount of, there are these technologies which they are called the pervious pavers. Then you also have, I think I have heard about it, there is porous concrete. So if you do want to use that, that could be also used. And that goes for the second question also that you asked in terms of the, to answer the second question in terms of specific design principles. But overall, I think especially, and I also saw in the question that this was largely related to the ORR and areas around the ORR. Again, if you want to look at it positively, there are very large software parks and campuses around there. So the whole idea of negotiating at a very small scale is not there. Some of these, it's a question of reaching out to these people, increasing the awareness and saying that the surfaces have to be kept necessarily porous. And then it is a question of enforcement. This then also needs to be codified into the building bylaws. Now, it is there in the building bylaws, it is there in the zoning regulations, but not strongly enough articulated. So I think very directly, simply articulated, and then actually demonstrated through visually put up in the maps. All these are some of the solutions that we can resort to, both in the short term and in the long term. What I would also like to, one more small submission that I would like to make over here is that there is this larger concept of zero discharge, which is actually picking up a lot of traction. So in many cities, I know it is there in Hyderabad, I know it is there in Gurgaon, where especially for the larger buildings, your ratings and other things are linked to, there is an enforcement saying that whatever rain falls into your campus cannot be discharged into the public drain. You have to find ways and means of having a zero discharge. So I think that is, again, it's a matter of increasing awareness around it. It's a matter of starting to enforce that. The private property should actually take responsibility for not discharging its rainwater into the public drain. That should come, from the roads or whatever the public spaces are, that's where it can discharge. How do you do that? As Vishwanath was saying, through the wells. You have wells in your campuses, you have other systems in the campuses, and that, I think, if we were to really enforce it, it can be only done through incentivization. So I really believe in this whole idea of incentives, where the government, in terms of answering the question on the governance challenge, I think governance, how do you ensure it? You really need to put out incentives over there for people who are doing it, and campuses and properties that are doing it. How do you reward them? And those who are not doing it, how do you penalize it? Even if you don't go to the latter, at least the ones that are doing it need to be incentivized, and that really works. So I think that those are some of the solutions I would kind of put forward. Yeah, I think I've covered most of it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Anjali. Vishwanath, do you have anything to add? And Captain Santosh?
Just one point, there is an existing law that needs to be enforced. We've carefully crafted out the rainfall pattern and the intensity of rainfall, and the rainwater harvesting bylaw, which is mandatory in Bangalore, now suggests and says very specifically that for every square meter of roof area, you have to create a 60-liter storage or recharge. And for every square meter of paved area, you have to create a 30-liter storage or recharge. And for unpaved areas, you are rewarded by not having to do anything, because unpaved areas will automatically allow the water to go. All it requires is for the BWSSB to follow through, and especially on these large institutional campuses and commercial campuses, make sure that the building bylaw is followed, and you will have sorted out a major chunk of the problem. So Anjali, as you know, that this law was crafted in 2013 itself, and it's there out there. It's just a question of enforcement, as you mean, did it. And this law was crafted after studying the rainfall pattern as developed by the KS and DMC, and looking at daily rainfall. So 60 mm and 30 mm, that's the rule. And what the group should do is to make sure that the institutions are told the law and make sure that the BWSSB enforces it.
Right. Thanks so much. So all those who are near large campuses, if you see the roads flooding there, and if you see that water is being discharged, then this gives you an idea of what you need to do. Vishwanath, I have a few questions now about apartments that are being affected by excessive rain. Century Saras is an apartment in Yelahanka. It's located next to a stormwater drain on one side and an open ground on the other. And the basement has been getting flooded with water whenever it rains. So they would like to know what they need to do. And there is another apartment also in Yelahanka located between the Puttanahalli and Attur lakes there. And they say that the basement, which has their gym and clubhouse and office, keeps on getting flooded. Water seepage is from the ground and not from the walls. Can we construct an open well in the campus so that raising water can be diverted and pumped from the basement into the well? Is there some way that basement flooding can be stopped? There is another apartment which was affected by floods in September, and they are looking for solutions to control the flood waters. And they're looking at redrawing plumbing solutions to plan the water inflow and outflow, and they're looking for people who can guide them. So please let us know how these three can handle their situations.
So I think quite briefly, again, the whole of urban India is now starting to realize what aquifers are, what groundwater is, and how designs, master plans, building bylaws should accommodate aquifers, right? What we have done, unfortunately, so far in India is we've allowed basement parkings and other forms of use of basements. 1, 2, 3, triple basement parkings have become the norm. What these basement parkings do is they eat away the aquifer. They pump out all the water, fresh water, throw it into the storm drain and allow it to go. And then you concretize it. And then you put all sorts of stuff inside it, parking places, gyms and stuff like that. And when the rains come, the aquifer reaches its normal level and shows people what aquifers are and what groundwater is, right? So we'll have to start with the building, with the master plan and the building bylaws, identifying these groundwater, high groundwater potential zones and dissuading people from building basements there. Point one. Unfortunately, for these apartments, it's already a done deal. So what do you do now? What you do now is to start to recognize that this aquifer water is actually good water which you can put to use. Check the water in a water quality lab, and you, at the least, you can put it to non-potable use, right? You can make sure that the water is used for all toilet flushing except drinking. In most cases, we have found that this aquifer for water with a minimum amount of treatment is good enough for potable use. So yes, build a well, use the well water, lower the aquifer level, and substitute your tanker water, your deep borewell water, and your Kaveri water with open well water as much as possible. Reduce the groundwater table to below your basement levels and make sure that whenever the water level comes up to a certain level, that the well starts to pump it out and send it into the stormwater drain in the current condition, because you've already invested there, right? So make use of open wells as a solution space. And this has been demonstrated in many apartments. What we need to do is to show how these apartments have done it. Basement flooding has been eliminated, and drinking and water requirements of the whole apartment met with this groundwater. We need to broadcast those stories, and we will do that with Citizen Matters as a follow-up, so that these success stories are also told, people can replicate it.
Yes, that will really be good. Also, if you have any contacts of people who can help them.
So we will put it up on our trust website. We have a list of service providers. We'll try and put up the MEP consultants who will be able to do this kind of a job. We'll try to create a crowdsourced list of these people who have these categories, and they would be able to consult any one of them.
Yeah, sure. Thanks.
Yeah, ma'am.
Yes, Captain, go ahead.
When we talk about this sort of seepages happening with the neighbourhoods and all in apartment complexes, there are several cases which has came into my notice. These seepages started happening after the lake rejuvenation. We came across that one unscientific lake rejuvenation led into the flooding of these apartments. Now, a question comes: who is responsible for it? Is the residents responsible for it? Is the lake responsible for it? Is the person who rejuvenated the lake is responsible for it? Who has to compensate for this. This sort of things happens when the lake rejuvenation happen unscientifically, when lake rejuvenations happens without following the due scientific things, and lake rejuvenations happen when they don't follow the contour concept. I was telling, when I take you through the all these things, I'll explain you how this contour concept, what all things we need to see, and how we need to maintain the depth of this lake. Like Jen Rainman was clearly mentioning, you saying that every tank has got a capacity. Based on that capacity to hold that water only, they created the bund. Based on that capacity only, we have created the waste ware. Based on that capacity only, we created a Rajkalve. Based on that capacity only, we construct with the villages used to be inhabited in that area. Now what has happened with this urbanization, whatever the urbanization is happening around, most of the, if you see in the happening without even having proper approvals from the controlling authorities, what we call it as competent authorities. If you go and see some of the areas, they are constructing in green belts. When you construct in a green belt, you don't have a proper approval, you don't have a proper authority, and the gullible buyers go and buy those properties and try something, because they don't have a proper planning for the waste disposal, they don't have proper planning for the drainage system, because you have done something which is not approved, which has not been approved by the competent authority. Then those places, we ourselves becomes the responsible for whatever the mess we created. Coming back to the Tirubunalli's case, now in these sort of cases, the people have invested their hard money into the buying those properties, taking the homes and all. Now this problem is happening. Now where these people need to go? Similar cases came up to us saying that Kalasanalli, there also I started hearing similar problem. Those things needs to be taken seriously. We need to create a common standards across the lakes, saying that when you touch the lake, these are the parameters you need to follow. Now what is that? If you see any area next to the lake, those lakes, most of these places are wetlands. When you go and start constructing in the wetlands, obviously seepage has to happen. If you are ready to take the sort of risk, and if you are ready to take those sort of risks in your life, you are most welcome to go and do the construction on those areas. That's why government has fixed something called as a buffer zone. The buffer zone is basically to protect you from the problems may arise because of the lake, because of the Rajakalve, because of the drains. It is not just for the sake of doing something exercise. It all happened. This buffer zone says this thing was prescribed for a reason. We need to follow those. After this question, I'll be sharing my screen where I'll show you how the lakes are interconnected, how the Rajakalves are interconnected, what work we are doing, how you need to identify a Rajakalve, how you need to maintain a buffer zone, what all the parameters you need to check before you buy a house, what all things you need to check. I will take you through the whole thing, then you will understand what point me and Jen Rainman is trying to push and make people understand.
Yeah, sure, Captain. Just give us a few minutes. We have some more questions, and then we'll come back. This question is to you only, Captain Santosh. The gentleman says, I live in Sarjapura and Sompura Lake is just opposite. There are two colorways that pass through my complex into the lake, and these keep on getting blocked. And he's tried to pick waste himself, but there's a lot that gets thrown into it. What can be done to educate the people? Whom can they talk to? One is to stop waste from getting thrown into it, and one is to get it cleaned. So can you advise?
If you see the whole lake, the lake network at that area, the lake flow starts from the Dombasandra Lake. From Dombasandra Lake, the water flows into the Emre Lake. From Emre Lake, water flows into the Sompura Lake. From Sompura Lake, water flows into the Sarjapura Lake. Sarjapura Lake is the main lake, which is one of the largest lake in the area. Now, what has happened? Most of the stormwater drains starting from Dombasandra to the next lake at the Emre has been encroached, and the waste dumping has become a rampant over there. Whatever he is claiming, whatever he is saying is the fact, it is the reality. I myself has gone into this area because almost all lakes in Anekal Taluk have been on ground. I know what things are happening, how those things. Now, the clearing of the garbage, initially there was a complaints which we used to receive, large amount of debris the construction debris, the construction wastages, even from the apartments, used to be get dumped in the Sarjapura, Doddakere. Similar thing used to happen in Sompura Lake. Similar thing used to happen in the Emre. And the people, almost all the stormwater drains are filled with the construction debris, what we have seen. Now, the solution for this, they need to complain in writing to the respective panchayat. For them, the respective panchayat, at the one side is the Emre panchayat, and another side is the Sarjapura panchayat, and the upper side and their western side is the Dombasandra panchayat. They need to give it in complaint. If they don't react in next 15 days, give the complaint next the executive officer Anekal Taluk. If he also don't react in next 30 days, please give that complaint to the CEO of Bengaluru Jilla Panchayat, whose office is at Banashankari. The officer is Mr. Sangappa IAS. He will definitely react. This is how we need to go. If nothing will happen in these 2 months, then we have got a different options, legal options. We need to take those options to protect our environment.
All right. Thank you, Captain. The next question for Anjali. A BDA approved layout has roadside drains built as per approved plan, but there are no exits to these drains and water logs at the lowest area of the layout. What can we do to solve this? And another question which is also related is BDA and BBMP approval, stock of roads and sites, topography is not part of approval. So builders completely change topography of the land, affecting water flow. What can be done about this in the approval process?
I'll take the second question first.
Yeah.
As I said, that I really think a lot of the answers lie in where we are able to visualize what the land looks like. And that is why I keep pushing for maps that have to be put out there where people can see what is happening. Many a times either you don't want to engage with the engaging with the topography also for a developer is expensive. Also, it is doesn't have, you are not able to, sometimes there is a lack of awareness. So I think one of the things that we are also saying is that if you are to respect the lay of the land, and if you're ready to respect the slope and everything else, then your approvals have to be also based on that, right? So it is not just the plan for the layout and the plan for the house, but also the lay of the land and the slopes and everything else, the topography, everything. And therefore, this entire plan that comes to you for approval has to be within a larger context where you're able to see the topography. Again, at the plot level, it will not make much of a difference. So number one, that has to be put in place. Again, it is a matter of enforcement. I think and there are no negotiations here. You just need to enforce this out. So I think one, the action has to be from the government side itself, but even from the citizen side. I mean, I don't know what else to say. You just, if you have the awareness, you need to respect it. If you don't have it, then it needs to be brought in. But one technical thing that can be done is that if I am pushing forward for approval of a particular layout, I need to ensure that I'm following the lay of the land, and that needs to be also focused upon when we are giving the layout plan for approval. So that's as far as the second question is concerned. The first question, all I can say is that at least in a BDA layout, you have drains, right? So I don't know whether we should be, but it has to, we have seen it ourselves. It just starts from nowhere, stops nowhere, and there is a lot of flooding. Of course, you need to connect it to, or again, follow the topography of the land. So, and give space for the water to flow. Obviously, when the water is not flowing, it's kind of flooding the place. What are the solutions for it? Again, you allow the water to flow out as the drain is flowing, the water has to be allowed to flow. But of course, the drains, as Vishwanath has already said, one, they have to be deeper, they have to be porous, allow as much percolation as is possible into the ground. But we also know with changing climates and high intensity of rainfalls, a lot of these things, design principles are also going awry. So you need to take the worst case scenarios and design for that. That is something that is becoming very, very dynamic. I think here as a planner, one of the things that I can speak about is really a small shift in the mind, in the policy, in the plan, in the budget from very engineering-based solutions to what we call the nature-based solutions, where you are using the topography itself to actually provision some of these things. But these are larger solutions which will fall in place neither at the plot level nor at it can possibly, it will fall in place as far as the layout is concerned. So maybe that could also be a solution. So as the approval is being taken, how do you ensure that it becomes, there is some sort of you're putting some sort of an NBS in place at the plot level, at the layout level itself. I don't know if I've answered the question, but to the extent possible, yes.
Yes, now that the infrastructure as it is in place, so the drain goes nowhere. So what do they really do? They need to go to the government only, isn't it?
Yes, of course.
No.
That is, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead, Anjali.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you need to actually, again, go to the government, show where the problem is. See, many a times also, simply because of the scale at which the government operates, right? It is not really able to go down to the lowest level and see what is happening. So again, going to the government, putting in a complaint and saying, and if it is a BDA approved lower layout, they have to go to the BDA itself and say, this is what is happening, and then find a solution to how it can be connected to an outlet. I don't know if it is possible. Sometimes in retrospect, I don't know if it is possible, but definitely a complaint has to be put in. And I think in most cases, they may be able to find a solution simply by visibilizing the problem also.
Right. Let me just add, and I think Captain Santosh will be able to do that, Aarti. What they need to do is to understand what the Rajkalve map of that overall area is. They just have to sit with Captain Santosh and click on the Dishank app and go there to that last point and find out where is the nearest Rajkalve,
outlet,
right?
Yeah.
And connect the stormwater drain to the Rajkalve and make sure that happens. If they do that, then their problem is solved. And I'm sure Captain will talk a lot more on that.
Thanks to Anjali ma'am. Tried to explain us how the whole system, how these approvals happen. Because before we give approval for any project, that map normally get prepared by the survey department. Survey department needs to supply the giant sketch to the approving authority about mentioning all the survey numbers and concerned classification of the area. Based on that, whichever the approving authority will approve the project. Let's take an example of BDA. When they're approving, they show the Rajakalves, they show the drains. See, there is something called as, when we get into, once we finish our these questions, I'll take you into the practical explanation how this happens. Then you will be able to understand and correlate the things, whatever we have explained over here.
Yeah, all right, Captain. Thank you. Next question. Mr. Vishwanath, this is a question about a cottage in Devanahalli. So it's in a layout, and they have been having seepage during the rains, both from the top and from the bottom. So the walls are getting seeped, and the builder has tried to fix it, but these are all small solutions. So he thinks he's fixed it, and then when the next rain comes, again, there's a patch. So she says that we need a permanent solution, which the builder is not able to provide. And there is another question where they are having a severe leakage from the roof because of excessive rain, and they're looking for a solution better than a waterproofing solution.
So for the first question, it's a very localized issue, and we'll need to take a look as to what is causing the surface leak and the groundwater leak. Usually the surface leak is caused by the fact that if you have a basement or a wall, you don't pack the side of the wall appropriately, and therefore surface water starts to come in through this loose structure and then come in from the top, right? So if you have a good paving on the sides of the walls, and then you slope it and take the water away, then the surface leakage should be stopped. The groundwater leakage would be an issue which we have to understand as to why it's happening, whether it's being caused by a lake or a water body nearby, or is it because the groundwater table itself is coming up? And if the groundwater table is coming up, they need a recharge well. As we are saying, as Aarti, you have also experienced, if you just dig a well and start using the well water, your basement seepings will stop in Devanahalli particularly. This year has been a particularly high rainfall. Regarding the second question for the rooftop leakage, and you don't want to do waterproofing, That's like asking a contradictory question, right? But I'll try and answer that. What you do and what is done in high rainfall areas, like Bombay, for example, is that you put a light roof on top of your existing flat roof. You put a light roof, which is made of steel or aluminum or sheets like that, so that it does two purposes. One, it prevents direct water falling on your rooftop, so you can take that water away and you can harvest it and use it. And second, it will also stop your roof from getting hot also. So both these are there. But I'd say take a good look at rooftop paints, which are both insulating as well as damp proofing, and they are very good ones that are available in the market, and you should try that.
Yes. All right. Thank you, Vishwanath. Now, I just have one big question about the KC Valley project in the wake of increased annual rainfall. How relevant is it? And is this project a good idea? I know it's a bit broad-based, but
I'll take a very brief shot at it. You see,
yeah.
What we are now going to experience as part of climate change is rainfall patterns which are going to be variable. That we have been confronted with heavy rain over this year and the last two years is an aberration. We can also be faced with 3 years of consecutive drought. We don't know. With climate change, everything gets variable. So when the drought hit us, then the KC Valley project becomes relevant because it's going to fill 1,000 lakes, right? And you should see that as you improve the treatment of wastewater and ship it into the tanks and lakes, they perform various functions, including groundwater recharge, including bringing the groundwater table up, but also environmental functions. The whole ecology and the biology and the biodiversity of the space changes, so it can be there. The second thing to consider is if you don't send it to KC Valley, where should this wastewater go? After treatment, it goes into the Dakshin Pinakini River in this particular case, and then it goes to the dam at Kelvarpalli, right? So the question for us is, where should we send the treated wastewater? Should we send it into the Dakshin Pinakini, or should we send it to fill the lakes of Kolar and Chikbalapur? And in my opinion, it's good to have both options open. Like for now, when the lakes are all full, the water is going into the Dakshin Pinakini. When it's not full and when the lakes are empty, then the KC Valley project will fill these lakes. So this is a great big experiment. There's a lot of learning that is happening, and I think we should fine tune it and improve it as things go along. And Bangalore should become an exemplar for taking care of not only itself, but also the surrounding dry districts of Kolar, Chikbalapur, and also the needs of farmers there, so that the farmers' livelihoods are protected. That's the overall goal, and the KC Valley should be seen in that light.
So just to add to that, I think to the extent that, just reiterating and added to what Vishwanath was saying, to the extent that it is looking at arresting the sewage and looking at managing the sewage, I think it's a good, and it's an experiment. We will only be learning as we move along the way. And I think there is a lot of incremental learning in the process. I still haven't looked at it in greater detail, but yeah, I think that is, to an extent, it's an experiment that should be successful. It also, at a very large, at a broader level, marks again the whole idea of, in many senses, foregrounds the whole idea of nature-based solutions. So I think it can take the conversation, it can serve that purpose itself. However, having said that, I don't know about the kind of buffers and other things. It's the drain in itself and what it is doing, I think is good, but one is hoping that those buffers have been considered while designing it, and there is, because you need to look at it in context of the larger catchment and what is this function it is performing in the larger system. And I think to that extent, some of the learnings that it will give over a period of time would be useful. So to the extent its primary objective of arresting the sewage, I think it should be a good experiment.
All right. Thank you, Anjali.
See, ma'am,
Go ahead, Captain.
When we talk about KC Valley project, these projects are planned some 15 years back, say about a 1.5 decade ago. That time the situation was totally different. Now the person who has asked this question, he asked with a lot of thought. This question is not just like it came like that. See, today, whatever has happened in last 2 years, this question comes in front of every person saying that, is this KC Valley project is relevant or not? Now, this thing, whatever I seen, KC Valley water goes to the Kolar, KC Valley water comes into the Anekal Taluk, KC Valley water goes into the even
Captain, your audio is breaking up. Can I suggest that you just switch off your video and see if it improves?
Very very what to water from Bangalore and okay, now it's hello. Now
No, the audio is breaking, Captain. Will you switch off your video, Captain?
is it fine, ma'am? Now is it fine?
Now it's
Hello?
better, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Now, when we talk about the KC Valley project, when we decided about this project or the planning of this project happened some around 1.5 decade ago. That time the situation was what Zen Redman was mentioning. We were going through with a lot of drought, and most of the tanks around Anekal Taluk and Kolar district were completely dry. With this, whatever rainfall we have seen in 2.5 years, these tanks are filled now. Obviously, this question of saying that is this KC Valley project is it this KC Valley project is required, can come into anyone's mind. When we talk about the waste management, when we talk about this wastewater management, whatever is the grey water which is coming in Bangalore needs to be taken into consideration. Yes, this KC Valley project is required. Depends. Today we are getting a very good rainfall. Today all our tanks are filled. Tomorrow for about 5-6 years, we may not be having this sort of rain. That time our tanks may go dry. If you see the connectivity, KC Valley Project 2 is connecting 65 lakes in Anekal Taluk and 2 lakes in Ramnagar, which will be taking care and further filling around 300 lakes around both the taluks. This is how the whole concept is.
Yes, thank you, Captain. So now we finished with the questions that we had pre-received. Please message me if there are any questions on the YouTube chat. On this chat, I don't see any questions on our Zoom chat. Captain, you wanted to share something. How long will you take?
Say about 15 minutes, because it will give you the complete picture of how this whole concept what we're discussing.
All right. Do we have that time, Rishabh? Do we have that kind of time now?
Yeah, sure. So because there are no questions on YouTube, so maybe Captain can go ahead and sort of explain the process. So I think, yeah, we can do that. Yeah.
Yeah, sure, Captain. So
okay, ma'am. I'll be sharing my screen now.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Now we can see this Google Earth thing over here. Now this clearly shows how these Bangalore lakes are interconnected to each other. If you see this lake is the first lake in the system, which is the Gattahalli Lake, which receives the water from the KC Valley pumping from the our Bengaluru Lake. This is the Bengaluru is here. From here, this water comes into this lake. From here, if you see 2 Rajakalways over here, you can see 2 Rajakalways over here. These 2 Rajakalways receive water and this carries, and this is the second lake in the Rajakalway network. This is Uskuru Lake. From here, this water flows into Singanagara Lake or Narayanaghata Lake. This is the lake which we have surveyed and got it complete encroachment river. I myself has cleared the complete encroachment in this lake. And we have cleared this Rajakalway. Now you can see the Rajakalway here, which has got cleared recently. You can see here. This is how the Rajakalway encroachment has been removed. This picture, the satellite image is taken some 6-7 months back. Now you can see in the en route, one buffer tank came in between. We filled this tank also by connecting into this Rajakalway. Now this Rajakalway is running. From past 60 years, this Rajakalway was missing. This Rajakalway was missing. And all the water which is coming out from this lake used to get flooded in this area. You can see this area, this used to flow like this. And it used to reach into the second lake, which is here. This is the Muttanalluru Lake, one of the largest lake. Similar way, there is another Rajakalway, which is running from Muttanalluru Lake to Bidruguppe. This is the Bidruguppe Lake here. This is the last lake in our Karnataka lake ecosystem. This lake receives water from 101 lakes around this Bengaluru city and carries into the Tamil Nadu. This is the Tamil Nadu here. From here, the complete water moves into Tamil Nadu. Now, you may be wondering why I'm explaining the whole thing. Can you see a flooding over here? This complete area is flooding because the complete drain from this lake called the Battalakere to this lake, the drain got enclosed, the drain got silted, the drain got completely filled up. That's why the water is going in this farmlands. Now, what we have done, similar thing was here. You can see this green line. In year 2021, we done this survey. We identified the encroachment. We identified the stormwater drain, which was encroached from 1960s till 1960s to 2021. This drain was missing. If you go and see the historical image of this complete area, you will see there was no drain. Now, what is happening? Whatever the water which is coming into this lake, whatever the water which is overflowing from this lake will flow into the lower lake. Now, if you see the elevation of this lake, it comes around 880 plus. The lower lake will come around 880 less than 3.5 meters. Now, that's what I was telling. The elevation of the outward delay. This needs to be aligned in such a way that elevation profile needs to be taken care of. Complete elevation profile. I'll show you the second drain's elevation profile. Now you'll understand how this whole drain is planned. Now you can see this is the starting point of the drain. Now you can see the elevation. Now you can see the red line which is showing the elevation of this complete drain, how it has to flow. This is how drains needs to be planned. Now we are going at the second drain. Now you can see the elevation started here at 830, the 562, 9 meters to on the That's if we don't do the proper bunding and the proper systematic reinforcement of bunding, what happens? Whatever the water is there in this lake, the seepage will start coming out from this bund. Now what happens? That's why the government has kept a proper buffer zones from the lake bunds. If you don't maintain that buffer zones, if you start going and constructing nearby this lake areas, then obviously we will be facing that problem of sweepages. Similarly, with the Rajakalways, you can see the Rajakalway here. This is the Rajakalway which will be carrying the water out of this lake from one lake to another lake. Now you can see how the complete lake ecosystems got connected to each other, how they are going to protect us from the flooding. Now, this is the catchment area drains. Now you can see the drain here. This is the catchment area drain. Whatever the rainfall which is falling in this area, this drain carries that water into the lake. Similarly, we have got multiple drains over here. Now I'll explain you how to find out these drains, how to find out each lake connected to another lake. Now for this, we need to do a joint mapping of each villages. I'll show you each and every village maps, how they're connected to each other. Now you can see the Bangalore. Now this is the same place where the recent flooding has happened. Doddakanalli area, you can see. These are all the drains. You can see the drains over here where I'm showing you the line. These are the digitally surveyed and marked drains here. Now this is the lake. Now water has to flow from here. Now where this drain, we can see what all the constructions, where they are diverted, and all this stuff we need to check. See, the elevation, one elevation is here and the lower elevation is here, say. So whatever there at the upper elevation, that water has to flow at the lower elevation. Wherever you try to block, wherever you try to reduce the size of the drain, or you try to do something with the drain, the whole that area which is above that the blockage or whatever it is, this is how the whole ecosystem of lakes are interconnected. We need to keep these things in our mind while we decide. If you see, this is your KC Valley, Koramangala Chalagatta Valley, this is your Suvarnamukhi Valley, this is your Arkavati Valley, this is your Nagwara Valley. This is how, if you don't connect, if you don't maintain the proper elevation each other lake, if you don't maintain the lake integrity, then we will having saving ourselves. Now we can say how many lakes are connected. Now, one sewage was getting discharged into this lake, into the NG roads, deposited with the to this lake, receives the pollution over here. Now it is not the isolated lake in the complete.
Okay, I think we've lost Captain. His connection seems to have dropped. Hello, Captain. Are you able to hear us?
Adi, I think we his connection is weak, I guess. So maybe we
Yeah.
can move
I
forward.
can hear you. Now, this Chandapura lake, all can you hear you, ma'am? Now.
Yes, Captain. Is there some way you can just switch off your video, Captain? Stop
Okay.
your video, so maybe the audio will improve.
Yes, ma'am, I'll try that.
Yeah, go ahead. We can see your screen now. It's very interesting. Go ahead, Captain.
Now, can you hear you, ma'am, now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, okay. Now, what is happening? This Chandapura lake, which is there in the lake ecosystem, now you can see the sharing, my screen sharing?
Yes.
Okay, and now you can see this Chandapura lake over here, which is marked in the red, this thing. Now, NGT has considered this lake's pollution thing because this lake was discharging pollution into Muttanur Lake. Why I'm mentioning, referring about this lake, someone has asked about the sewage discharge. Now, this lake got polluted. This lake is discharging into the Muttanur Lake. Now, this lake is not in an isolated distinct to discharge the pollution. This lake was receiving pollution from the so many lakes, which you can see in the complete ecosystem. The numbers goes up to 50 lakes were discharging into one lake. Now, what has happened in NGT's case, they've done this study with all these lakes. They've done the study of all these drains. They've taken the consideration and testing of this lake. Now they fined the Karnataka government with the 500 crores to further fine it on the polluters to set right all the pollution which is getting discharged into the Chandapura lake, so that Muttalu lake can be saved, so that the downstream lakes can be saved. Whenever we talk about pollution, it is not an isolation. Whenever we talk about the stormwater drains, it is not an isolation. We always need to see and do things in such a holistic manner. That's why I always say the planners and the designers to consider the upstream lakes and the downstream lakes, upstream distinguished stormwater drains and the downstream stormwater drains before they plan any infrastructure project. That's how we need to go and work with. Now, further, when we see the thing over here, now I'll show you one map over here, how the stormwater drains are designed and show. See, when we talk about one thing, whenever we mark the Rajakalaways, you can see a map over here. This is an example of the stormwater drain, what we have in the one of the now you can see the map here, ma'am.
Not yet. It says it's
Now you
going
can
to
see
come.
the map here, ma'am. Okay. One second. Can you see a map over here?
No, Captain, we're not able to see your screen.
Okay, now you can see here, this is the drain, what you can see over here. This is the one drain. Similarly, another drain over here. This is the drain what identified through the this thing, our ground study, and we found out these are the drains which have been blocked by the people. You can see a construction over here. You can see a construction above the drain. Now, what happens whenever any construction happens in this sort of drains, all the drain network will get choked up. Whatever the buildings, whatever the area which is there above that area will be started flooding. That's why we always need to keep our drains clear, and we need to maintain them into their vertical integrity to avoid flooding, to save ourselves from the sort of flooding, whatever we are talking about.
Yes, thank you so much, Captain Santosh. This was very informative. Really very sorry that your voice was breaking up. So I think we lost a little bit of what you said, but we got the gist of it, that it's very important to look at the maps. And I think if anybody requires any of these, please get in touch with Captain Santosh. He's done a lot of work on mapping the drains, and if you are in doubt, you can approach him and then ask him to share the maps. And all this is a little bit of work, but to save ourselves, we need to do it. Thank you so much, Vishwanath, Anjali, and Captain Santosh. Rishabh, I'll pass it to you now for the closing.
Yeah, thanks, Aarti. So I don't think we have any questions on YouTube or here in the Zoom chat. So just a minute, just check on YouTube. Yeah, so there are no questions on YouTube as well. So I think we can just wrap it up then. So yeah, thank you all for joining, and see you next time with our new session on Citizen Clinic. Yeah, thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for having us over.